Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are jumping right into one of modern fiction's most, well, complicated characters, Georgina Evans from Reality Shift: The Unraveling.
So who is Georgina Evans really? Is she a savior, a guru, a scientist? To figure that out, we've got to peel back all these different layers of who she is, one by one.
All right, first up, the public spiritual guide. This is the Georgina that the whole world sees, a clinician who also happens to have this massive following.
And when I say massive, I mean it. She's this huge spiritual influencer. Her followers actually call her Gigiji, and there are 5 million of them subscribed to her on YouTube. But here's where it gets really wild. She's kind of living this double life, right? On one side, she's a legit licensed clinical psychologist, very professional, very scientific, and on the other, she's a spiritual guide. So much so that the FBI actually investigated her for being a cult leader. A claim, by the way, that she absolutely denies.
Her whole spiritual journey kicked off with this intense 2-week experience she calls an awakening. She described it as this state of pure bliss where she felt connected to, everything. It was so powerful, her husband actually had to cancel all of her appointments for her.
And yet, you'd think she'd be all high and mighty about it, but she's not. She looks back and says, it was probably arrogant of me to think I could guide people, especially because she never really had a teacher herself. That's some serious self-awareness right there.
Okay, so that's her public side. But what happens when things go wrong at home? Well, that's when we see her become the private family leader. She takes charge in a big way. After her husband's life just completely falls apart, professionally, personally, the whole thing, Georgina doesn't even blink. She steps right in and becomes the new head of the household, all to protect her family from a pretty dangerous enemy.
And her plan was super organized. First, she takes the lead. Then she makes everyone meet in their safe room every single week, no exceptions. And that's where she teaches them about intention and introduces this totally radical idea she calls shifting realities to get away from the danger.
Now all of this, everything she's doing, it's all built on this deep personal philosophy. It's kind of like the family's anchor in the middle of this huge storm. So her core beliefs, which are really inspired by a book called A Course in Miracles, basically boil down to this. To change the world around you, you got to change what's inside you first. You have to get rid of all that old emotional baggage, as she calls it. Because fear, that just comes from thinking we're all separate and alone. And this is the absolute key to understanding her. This one quote, separation never happened. For Georgina, the idea that we're all separate beings is just an illusion. That one thought is what drives everything she does.
And this wasn't just talk. She really lived it. She forgave her husband for some pretty big mistakes. She welcomed his secret daughter into their home, and she guided her sons by helping them see how their own choices affected the whole family. It was all about this multifaceted love.
Okay, so she's a guru, a matriarch, a leader. But hold on. Because while all this was happening, while she was guiding her family through this insane crisis, she was also playing a totally different role, one that nobody knew about.
Yeah, there was another layer to all of this. This whole family crisis, it wasn't just a crisis. It wasn't just a spiritual journey. Something else was going on behind the scenes.
It turns out the whole thing was a formal scientific research study. And you're not going to believe this. Georgina was the lead researcher, and her own family? They were the participants. She was literally studying them, with their consent of course, to see how people deal with the conflict between what they want and what's best for their family. And get this, she even published the results.
Wow, that changes everything, right? This final piece of the puzzle makes you look back at every single thing she did and ask, who was she really in those moments? The mother? The guide? Or was she always the scientist, just observing?
And her own quote just brings it all home. When someone asked her why she never shifted realities herself, she said, "I was already living in my desired reality." Think about that. She didn't need to escape because for her, the perfect reality was one where she could love and help the people around her.
So that leaves us with the big question, right? What was really driving her? Was it pure unconditional love? Was it a cold scientific curiosity? Or was it something else entirely? A need for ultimate control? Maybe the real Georgina isn't just one of these things. Maybe she's all of them, all at once.